Hi, good evening. Good to see you all. Thank you for coming. It's great to see such a good number of people coming out. This is all about supporting Stewart and Claire Cusick and Claire Robinson. So on their behalf, thank you for coming. It's a real encouragement to them, I know. You're going to hear from Stewart and Claire tonight about their plans for heading back to Ecuador, hopefully around the end of August time, all things going as planned. And from Claire and what's been happening. We're glad that Claire's with us tonight. She's going back home again later on in the week, so it's great to have her here. So before we start, let's just commit our evening to the Lord in prayer. Father, thank you for this opportunity to be here. Thank you, Lord, for these folk who have given up everything to go overseas and to serve you. Just pray that as we listen tonight, that you will speak to us and you'll let us know what you want our response to be, that you'll help us to remember them as we pray regularly for them, and that you will use them, and that you'll bless them, and your name will be glorified where they're working, because you're there and you're working with them. So Lord, just bless us tonight, and by your Holy Spirit, may this be a special time, for we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. So I'm going to hand over to Stewart and Claire now.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, guys.
There's so many of you. So I'm Anna Claire. This is my husband, Stewart. And we're just going to tell you a little bit about what we did for the last 2 years, what we learnt from what we did, and what we want to do going forward. So we're going to start with who we are. I am a doctor, and Stewart is a product development engineer. We have been married for 10 years this summer. And for those eagle-eyed of you in the audience, I'm not just getting really fat. We are expecting our first child in June. So we're planning to go back with her in August. So where have we been? We have been in Ecuador for the last 2 years with an organization called Latin Link. And for the first 6 months, we had to go to language school in Quito. And during that time frame, I had to sit a medical exam to start the process of getting my license in Ecuador. And it was just the first step on the road, but it was one of the steps that God really showed us that he was with us, because I had only done 4 months of Spanish at that time, and it was a postgraduate entrance exam to be able to practice medicine in that country. And for the first time in I don't know how many years, they reduced the pass mark to a level where I was able to pass it first time after only having 4 months of Spanish. So it was pretty incredible, to be honest. So then after our 6 months of language, we moved to a small town called Shell. And Shell is a very well-known mission town because it is kind of like the gateway to the Amazon. So it's not a big town, it's only got about 12,000 people in it, but it has an airport that has all of the little tiny planes that can go into the communities in the jungle. So it's actually a huge base for mission. And we went to work in this hospital called Hospital Shell. I actually didn't work there for very long. I shadowed other doctors for about 4 months before I went to continue the process of getting my medical license, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But Stewart was there for about 1.5 years. The hospital was originally set up in 1958, but it did close in 2016, and then a German doctor reopened it again in 2018 because he really felt there was a need in that area.
Yeah, so when we first went out, I didn't really have a role of what I was going to do in the hospital, but they asked me to start in maintenance and see how I got on there. It was a really good place. I did a lot of handy work and welding and helping the guys, and it was a real good place to start learning or improving my Spanish. After that, that initial couple of months, I was then asked to help out in the IT department. Unexpectedly one day during a meeting with everyone in the hospital, they just asked me to do it, and they hadn't asked me beforehand. So I accepted to do that. It was a real answer to prayer, because before that, I had really felt like I didn't really have a role. I was taking somebody else's role in maintenance, and I was really hoping that God would give me a a role that maybe would last longer, or that I could really help the hospital grow and benefit from over the year or year and a half that I was there. So I started in the IT department, helped them upgrade computers, put in Microsoft 365, and did a lot of things like that. And one of the real benefits of that was the other thing that I was praying for, and that was praying about my Spanish. And I was really struggling in the maintenance department. These guys are like working with builders from Belfast with really thick, strong accents, really hard to understand. But when I was in the ID department, I got to go around all the departments, practice my Spanish, and it was a real answer to prayer. And I kind of have a bit of shame now, because I prayed about it really hard before we went, about God helping me learn Spanish, and I really didn't expect God to help me as much as he did, because I was like, just let me be able to like communicate and work and survive. But God really, by the end of the 2 years, really helped me to be able to just make friends and really communicate a lot better in Spanish, more than I ever thought I could. So it's just like putting God in boxes sometimes isn't the best idea, because he can do so much more.
So as I said, I didn't actually work in the hospital for very long. So to get your medical license in Ecuador, you have to do what's known as a rural year of service for the Ecuadorian government. So after you pass that exam, you then apply for a rural year. And this is my subcenter. So I'm going to show a wee video just of me walking to work in the morning. So again, there was a lot of things that God showed us, his hand in this. I needed some paperwork changed online, and it wouldn't change because there just wasn't enough time. And I went and begged people to get it changed, and they just said, no, there's nothing else you can actually do about it. And then one Saturday, I just checked the system online, and it had changed. And nobody works on a Saturday, so there was actually no other explanation other than it was a miracle to get me to be able to do my rural year. And the other side of that was that I could have been placed absolutely anywhere in Ecuador. So I could have been on the coast. I could have actually gone to the Galapagos Islands, which would have been pretty cool. But I ended up actually going to Shell, where Stewart was working and where we wanted to be. So again, that in itself was just amazing. I'm just going to chat after this video finishes a little bit about what that rural year entails, because it is like nothing you'll ever experience in Northern Ireland medicine. Some of it was just consultations. I would just be talking to patients about their medical problems. But a huge amount of it was visiting patients in their houses. So I got to meet pretty much everyone in Shell. I met all of the communities, all of the different local areas, and I was able to meet so many more patients than I ever would have done in the mission hospital, because you had to walk around the town and find your patients actually a lot of the time. I also got involved in the anti-rabies campaign. So I actually spent 2 months vaccinating all of the cats and dogs in Shell, which I again never expected to be doing during my medical career. This is just a photo of some of the things that you have to do on the side of your medical consultation. So there's a lot of teaching, a lot of public health teaching involved in the year. I am teaching a class of girls here about cervical cancer. I had to teach some of the military men about HIV testing. And up in the top there, you can see me doing some exercises with the patients in the waiting area. So this was a requirement that you had to do every single week. And you had to take photos and then write up a report about the importance of exercise daily. So that was definitely not something I'd expected beforehand.
Yeah, so that was really briefly what we got up to with the medical side while we were there. And we just want to highlight some of the things we learned, and this is going to highlight then what we plan to do going forward. So what we found out in the end was we really didn't feel called to the hospital. In the end, we felt like the hospital was really helping the middle class, the upper class people, because it was fully private at this point. And Anna Claire's year in the rural or the public system really helped us to realize that the public health system did work, and we really needed to support it. We really needed to kind of like augment it, and rather than trying to create a completely independent system. We also realized that the hospital and maybe other organizations were creating some dependencies, especially around leadership, and they were relying heavily on missionaries, and the missionaries just can't come out and be doctors anymore because they have to go through the rural year that Anna Claire had to do. And it is hard, it is a brutal year to do, and we put so many doctors coming out to work and helping the hospital. On top of that, it wasn't Latin link based or Latin American based, and that meant that they were heavily reliant on the outside. And we really felt like we wanted to work for an organization that had more Latin Americans working in it. The other thing was building relationships. We have built so many relationships, especially Anna Claire, in such a different way than maybe other missionaries who go out and work in just mission organizations. She had worked in the public system. She knew, they taught her swear words, they taught her everything about the good and the bad, but it meant she understood culture really quickly, and we could compare it with how the mission hospital worked, and we really believed that there was other ways to work, and we'll explain more about that later. But also, it really taught us emphasized something that we'd always believed in, and that was integral mission. And that's just the process that social responsibility is equal to the importance of evangelism. And so for us, it was just a real thought process that there was another way to do it. And this verse, a couple of verses from 1 John 3:16-18 was something that we thought about before we went, while we were out there, and even when we came back, and I'd just like to read it out to you. This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. If anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need, but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? Dear child, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth.
So that brings us then on to what we want to do, what we want to go back to do. So as William was saying, we want to go back in August time, and one of the first things we want to say is that we are actually changing organizations. So we're changing organizations to an organization called Reach Beyond. And this is the verse that Reach Beyond used for their ethos. So similar to what Stewart was saying about the verse before, Reach Beyond's ethos mainly is that we are both the voice and the hands of Christ as we go into the world. So I'm just going to read it out. Jesus went through Galilee, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the good news of the kingdom and healing every disease and sickness among the people. So Reach Beyond ties actually really well into the organization that we're working with on the ground, but it also is an organization that focuses on medical care, water and sanitation, and radio around the world. So it has projects similar to what we want to do in loads of other countries around the world, and that's one of the reasons we want to go back with them, because they already have that expertise. So we're going back to work with an organization that is a Latin American organization. So it's entirely Ecuadorian. It's called Voz y Manos, which also means voice and hands, only in Spanish. It has a huge Latin American base. So you can't really see everybody in it, but there are a lot of Latin American missionaries that work for Voz y Manos. It has 3 main ministry areas. It trains Latin American missionaries to go abroad. It has a pastoral training team that trains local Ecuadorian pastors and churches. And it has our community development team. So the community development team is the team where you can see that Stewart looks like a giant down in the bottom there. So that's our team that works down in Shell. And we work primarily with indigenous jungle communities in water and sanitation and medical caravans. There is also hopefully going to be an agricultural program starting with them next year. But I just want to tell a quick story about that while Stewart shows this video. We always knew that Stewart wanted to work in water and sanitation, but we couldn't find any projects for the both of us in medicine and water and sanitation before we went out. So that's why we chose the hospital and we were going there, but Stewart wasn't 100% sure what he was going to do there. But the first night that we actually were in Shell, we were put in contact with that couple that you saw there in our community development team. And we asked them what they did, and he told us that he works in water and sanitation projects, but they're really struggling at the minute because they didn't have an engineer. So that was something we had never expected to come across in Shell, but it happened the first night that we got there. So that was pretty amazing. what I will be going back to do will be to work in medical caravans, because the couple that they had doing that retired in June of last year, and after that they asked me to get involved.
So I clicked on there to show this video. You all saw it, but this is just the Amazon and one of the tributaries leading into the jungle. And the jungle's quite remote, and how we get there sometimes, there's different ways of doing that. By canoe, first of all, getting there to the ports by road, and then getting these canoes, or what they call pekis, out to the communities. It can take anything from 4 hours to get there up to a full day. But one of the other ways we go in, and this is mainly reserved for Anna Claire and her medical caravans, because they're a bit more.
We have more money.
Yeah, you have more money or something. I don't know. They treat them better than us. With cement and bags and all the pipe work for the water projects, we can't really take stuff in planes. It costs too much money. Whereas for one plane to take all the medics in and their equipment. But yeah, this is us. This is one of the planes taking off as they're leaving Anna Claire and her equipment, and it's just to show you how rural it really can be. This is just some of the accommodation, the housing that's there. There's a very big variance in how people live, and you'll see that in the next sort of pictures. They're really blessed with being able to live out in the jungle, and they don't need central heating, they don't need windows. Sometimes they do have beds and they do have windows and walls, but this is just one of the more basic places that's quite far out. It's about an hour and a half by plane, yeah. So it takes quite a long time to get there. So you can see it's just a bit more basic, because they're not as close to the big cities to be able to buy things. I'll just skip on from that to let Anna Claire talk about some of the delicacies.
So whenever we're out there, we have a sort of agreement with the communities that we will provide all of the medical care for free and the water and sanitation projects, but they have to provide our food and give us somewhere to stay for the time we're there. And that's just so that we can more build relationships with them. But I would have to say that the food is probably my least favorite part of my whole job. So these are just some of the pictures of what we get to eat. This is Stewart trying to get some sustenance out of an armadillo tail. And this is probably my least favorite of all of them, but it is actually what is known as a meal of honor. These grubs are really difficult to get, and they have to cut through to the center of a tree and pick them out one by one. So they're really difficult and a real delicacy, but I can tell you that at 7 o'clock in the morning, that's really not what you want to see on your plate before you finish, before you start your day, sorry. And this picture is really important because it is what is known as chicha. So chicha is a really important part of their culture. It is made from a root vegetable called yucca. They chew it and then they spit it into these tubs and they ferment it for a couple of days, and they produce this delightful drink that they then pass around the community during the communal times in the community. And it's what they would give you to welcome you to their community. So as soon as you get there off the plane or off the canoe, that's what they'll give you to say, welcome, thanks for coming. But again, can be difficult to stomach sometimes. So this is just pictures of us. A lot of what we do when we're out there, obviously we're going to talk about the medical and the water and sanitation side, but what we really want to do is build relationships with these communities. And like I said, that actually involves drinking a lot of chicha and just talking to them. And that's really where we get to share the reason that we're there, the gospel message, and why we're working with them. And why we've come out to work with them. So one of the other ways we can do that is through sports, but they don't actually let us play a lot of sports because they think we're no good at it. So we actually do a lot of spectating of them playing sports. So our boss, Vinicio, the Ecuadorian, he's allowed to play volleyball, but we're not.
So I just want to tell you about the two projects that I'm involved in from the water and sanitation side. Our main projects at the minute is we have 3 water projects. We capture the water and we distribute it to every household in the community. Each household will get a tap and a shower, and it's all connected up to the one thing. But we don't go seeking these projects. They come to us in our office and they ask us to do it. And we have a long list of communities that would like these projects put in. What we do is we provide the materials and the expertise. They also have to provide the labour, the workforce, and dig the holes and put things together for us and carry the equipment about. And they then, as Anna Claire was saying, provide the food and the shelter for us. On top of that, we only have one of these projects on the go, but these are our latrines, and we try to give, again, each household in the community a latrine, because rather than just giving one or two into the community that gets used all the time, breaks down and nobody looks after it, if we give it to a family, that family will look after it. We also try to give them a quite high standard, so you'll notice it's a ceramic toilet and a ceramic bowl. We just feel like if we are happy to use it, they'll be happy to use it, and it'll last longer and it's more hygienic. And so it takes a bit longer for us to put them in, but it's definitely an improvement for them. So for me and my future aims going forward with the projects is I'd like to develop the project and use some of my engineering background to come up with new materials, new ideas and ways of doing them. Maybe to save money, maybe to reach more people on the budgets that we have. And I also like to collate some of the technical data that we have and just make it easier to choose projects and how to spec them up for that community. I'd also like to do some more engineering drawings for them and improve their planning as well as their budgeting, because there's not a lot of that done at the minute, unfortunately, with just the way Latin Americans work. So one of my skills is doing this, and I think I can really help and train them up to do that. And training is a big thing. I want to get involved with the local colleges. I have a friend who works in one of the local colleges, and he wants to send some of his students down to get to work with the water and sanitation projects. I also just want to train up the guys a little bit more who work on them at the minute.
So my medical caravans then, what I'll be going back to do hopefully, they consist of usually about 3 to 5 days of a trip out to one of the communities, and obviously there's no equipment out there, so as you can see in one of those pictures there, that's what we need to take with us to go to the communities. And when we get there, we actually usually find that people have come from all around those communities to come and see us. And one time when I went out, I saw 140 patients because people just came from all of the surrounding villages during the time that we were there. So yeah, this is just some pictures of us providing the care. It is very basic medical care. It's really just a lot about seeing what their main problems are and talking to the patients. But you can see in one of the pictures there, we have brought a dentist out with us. So that's something we've been trying to do a lot more recently and something we want to continue with in the future. So I have a lot of goals for the medical caravans, which may be a little bit ambitious, but I think you've got to start high and then bring them down. So one of the main problems with the medical caravans at the minute is that they go out whenever a community asks, maybe once every 2 to 5 years. But for those doctors among you, you'll know that medical care for a community once every 2 to 5 years is not really that helpful. So I would like to start up going to several communities that we have maybe selected to go there quite frequently, so maybe 6 to 8 times in a year, and just do continued follow-up with those communities and provide them treatment for their chronic diseases, dental treatment, social work, and maybe some treatment for malnutrition as well, which we are hoping to start with the agricultural program next year. But the real exciting thing that is happening in the jungle is the last one there, the telemedicine with drones. So a lot of these communities, although they're very rural, actually have access to solar power and Wi-Fi. So it can be really interesting. Sometimes you're literally sleeping on the ground. There's no toilets, no running water, but the guy sitting next to you can have a cell phone watching TikTok. You know, so it can be really incredible the difference in technology that it has made to these communities. So one of the things we're actually talking about at the minute is we're chatting with an organisation from the US about the possibility of a drone coming to Shell that would be able to take up to 5 kilos of medical equipment to a community. So what we hope would happen is that we could have a teleconsultation with a community if there was a real emergency, and hopefully then be able to send them out some medication with these drones, because we often can't fly due to weather reasons, and also the flights are really expensive, whereas the drones could take the medication out until we were able to get a little bit more access into the community. So that's just something that's really exciting and possibly the future of the medicine that we're doing.
And just another thing with Anna Claire and all the contacts she built up in the public health system, she's actually been able to have a meeting with the local medical director for our region, and they have agreed to work together, the public health system and our organisation, to send out doctors along with Anna Claire, as well as vaccines, which you can't get unless you're part of the public health system. And so they're going to work in conjunction, and our organisation will provide Anna Claire's expertise as well as funding for the flights and other medicines. Yeah, so just ways that we'd like you guys to get involved, and there'll be things down there. There'll be a sheet, I think it looks like this here, that if you just want to put your name on it, and we'll go around and pick them up at the end. Contact detail, email or mobile. If you want to do any of these things that I'm going to go through here now, we just really like to get people involved in what we do and be able to touch base with you, either meet up or just you can sign up to things like our support group. And that meets once a month, and we'll be looking to start that up again when we go out, and we're even looking to meet up sometime before we go and have a barbecue at Matt and Hannah Dass's house. So another thing we'd like to do is if you just want to receive our newsletters, all the information also is on the back of the business cards, so you can take that with you. And two important things, and I'll show you a slide for why in a minute, is a table quiz that we plan to have in Glen Abbey on the 3rd of June, just to raise some funds for our startup costs. There'll be more information about that later on, but on the 20th of May we have a craft day, and there should be leaflets. Anna Claire will hold them up if you want to sign up to them at Ballylinny Church. And the reason that we're doing that partly is to raise money to furnish our house, but also so that we can change this to more baby appropriate transport rather than having a motorbike. Other ways that we have got is social media. We try to use Facebook and Instagram, though we're not very good. And if anyone would like to financially support us, again, put your name down on the sheets, or you can take the business card, and then on the back of it is a website where you can see to financially support us. We recommend a bank transfer, but you'll see that information if you go to that website, and it'll explain how to do it. And finally, also, if you want to put your name down on the sign-up sheets, is Anna Claire would really like some more medical support. She has some medics that she reaches out to quite a lot just to review cases and things, but medical or social care support would be really greatly appreciated, and she might make a wee WhatsApp group or some way of contacting everyone. So yeah, I think that's everything from us.
We're just going to hand over now to Sharon and Claire. Thanks very much for listening.
Thanks, Stewart and Anna Claire. That's really exciting to hear what they're doing and what they'll be going back to in a few months with the baby today. So good luck with that. And I'm sorry to see the motorbike going. Just by way of introduction, I'm Sharon, and I'm part of Claire's support group, which we worked out today has been going for nearly 10 years. Is that right?
Quite scary, yes, since about 2014.
So I imagine there's some of you here who probably don't know Claire very well, so I'm going to ask her to tell you all a wee bit about herself.
Okay, I am Claire. I from Ballymoney originally. I always say this, you can probably still hear it in the accent. I don't think I'm ever going to be changed from that. I'm looking out and there's a lot of faces I do know, as well as new people to me as well. But I grew up in Ballymoney, went to Dalriada, trained to be a primary school teacher. Oh, I'm just saying, one of my former colleagues. Trained to be a primary school teacher at Stramillis, and then taught in Coleraine for a year, and then Brishean for many years, for about 9-10 years. So I came to Glenabbey in 2005. Never really planned to live in this part of the world, but my sister and I were buying a house together, and we chose somewhere where we could both have about a half-hour travel distance to our work. So that's how I ended up buying a wee house near Corrs Corner. Came out for a walk one night looking for a church to attend and thought, I'll try Glenabbey first. And I've never left. So that's how I found it and ended up here. So, yeah.
So when you first came into Glenabbey, how did you get connected in? What did you get yourself into that made you stay?
I sat down beside someone on the first day who invited me to a home group, and I think that was actually my key into staying in Glenabbey. I got quite involved in home groups quite early on. They were having a social, it was actually the last night of their home group before they were planting into 2 different groups. So I just got involved in that and found it really good, building relationships with people, Bible studies, and that's how I really started to feel like I was connected, and yeah, took it from there.
So it begs the question, if you were working in Brishean and settled in Glenabbey, what took you to Zambia?
I really loved our wee school in Brishean. Karen's here, we taught together. It was a great wee school, still is to this day. And I loved it. I started the same year. I started in Glenabbey in 2005 doing short-term mission trips. And that was quite late compared to a lot of the age a lot of people start. I was already 25 at that point, and I went a number of summers to different places, all involved in children's work, teams, that type of thing, and great experience, great growth and learning opportunities. But I got to a point where I just felt like these guys were saying, it's really hard to build relationships in 2 weeks or a month, and I really just wanted to have that opportunity to use my teaching skills in that context as well. When you go for, most of the time I went, it was summer holidays or something there, not maybe summer holidays, but they were on school holidays. So I just felt God was pushing me to take another step, and that's when I decided to apply for a career break. I was supposed to go for a year, but 3 or 4 months in, I just thought, it's not going to be long enough. Wanted to experience more of that. So I stayed 2 years at that point, and then 2012 I came back to the UK, taught again for another few years. But the deciding factor for me was I took, I see Robert here, Robert and Catherine and I went back out to Macungie the year after I came back in 2013 to do some teacher training, because I think God had really put it on my heart during the 2 years as a short-termer that one of the best ways to make an impact was to have really well-trained teachers. So we went out, and I think we did a pretty good job of the teacher training, absolutely. But I stayed a week after these guys left and realised they weren't really implementing anything that we had done, and that for it to be more effective, it would really take someone on the ground, walking with them, team teaching. I just discovered that if our teachers could see things being done and you could work with them, it was much more effective than a 1 or 2 day workshop where everybody's enthusiastic, but implementation was minimal. So that's 2013, I decided that I would start to transition out of my job. I resigned 2014, and I went to All Nations for the first time back then I did the first year of a BA so that I could choose modules on African studies and community development. And those things have really helped me in the time I've been out so far.
And going to study, was that part of your sign up with your mission organisation?
Yeah, SIM really recommended that I would do some sort of biblical studies foundation. I think the research does show that those that have some foundation tend to stay the course a bit longer, which makes sense. So I don't regret that at all. To be honest, it was a hard year going back into living in a community when you've had your own house and your own space and you're a wee bit older. And yeah, so I'm making myself sound ancient tonight.
Yeah. We heard a wee bit this morning and saw on the video just what Claire's achieved over the last few years that she's been there, and Garth's signing her up certainly for when she comes back for building control manager or something like that. And we all learned about drainage, of course, don't forget that.
And they just love it. When I talked to them as a support group about ablution block, they were so disappointed this morning that I didn't mention the ablution block.
Well, that's done, that's over. It's all about computers this morning. Mm-hmm. But I guess what would be nice is just, like, you've been there for a significant period of time now and a lot has changed aside from the buildings. Looking back over that time, what are the things that have encouraged you as you've spent time with the people there?
Yeah, I've been involved for a long time. When you think the first time I arrived at the school was 2010, and I think just to see how the school has grown, like as you saw in the little video if you were there this morning, in terms of infrastructure, we now have 7 classrooms. At the start we had 2. And just to have space for those children to be learning is really encouraging. We're now up to 243 kids running around. It's very busy, very noisy, but it's great to see that number of children now having the opportunity to come and learn in a Christian environment where just they learn through our interactions as teachers, and where we have the opportunity to share our faith every day through assembly, through RE lessons. So that's really positive. Just the relationships I've been able to build with the teachers in the school. It's challenging at times, and I think for me one of the big challenges is the turnover of staff. We're a private school under the Evangelical Church, but we have to pay all our teachers' salaries from the children's fees, and so we can't pay a salary that's as high as the government salaries. So when the government does recruit new teachers, our teachers tend to go for better security, and I think it's understandable. They also need to educate their children and their families, so they make that choice to go, not because they don't like the school, but just for the opportunity and security that gives them. And I think that was a real hard point for me back in July. We lost 8 out of our 12 members of staff at one time. And that was really, really difficult. I knew 9 had applied, but I didn't expect 8 of them to be picked, or I hoped 8 of them. I hoped they wouldn't be all picked, but they were. But even in that, God has been gracious in showing me glimpses of the impact that they have had in other places, and that's been really encouraging. The guy I thought I would hand over to, my former deputy head, he covered 2 of my home assignments for 6 months at a time. Really good. He went to the government, but he still comes back to visit and, to ask advice on certain things. But he tells me the stories of the things he's doing in his school now. His wife also was sent to the government, and she was telling me about how they were doing some training in phonics in her school, and what they were saying was just not right. And so she spoke up and she said, "No, actually, what you need to be doing is this."
Is that what you need to do?
Nails what you need to do is. She wasn't pointing her finger at the time, but so she then was asked to run a teacher training workshop in her school on how to teach phonics in grade 1 and grade 2, and so that just really encourages me that whatever they've learned and picked up, they're sharing, passing on, and it just widens that impact to other children in our community. So even something that seemed like such a negative has positives. Don't get me wrong, it's really challenging when you have to recruit 8 teachers, but good to see the impact they're having.
So for us here, how can we best support you going on from here?
Well, you can start tonight by praying for some of those things we've mentioned. If you'd like to be part of a support group, I have a brilliant support group facilitated by Sharon here. But they are brilliant. They meet on the last Thursday of every month. They meet on Zoom with me, and we just chat through what's been happening.
Primarily it's to give her a bit of banter and keep her grounded in Northern Ireland.
Yeah, keep me grounded. So yeah, but that's really good.
Is that not what it's for?
I think you're developing my resilience in unique ways, keeping my tough skin. So yeah, there's always space for more. If you would like to be part of that, it's great. Or if you don't want to be part of my support group, join another support group. Like, this is a lifeline, especially when you're going through challenging times. It's not easy to communicate on a public forum like Facebook or any social. I'm even worse than you in social media, but I just think to have a group that you can shoot out when you need prayer, it really is very, very helpful. So if you feel that's something you could contribute and support missions in the church and missionaries, I really encourage you to do that. I hope you get something out of it as well.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's great fun, and we get the occasional visit to go and see you. So.
So you can do that, and then just pray for the future. I'd love people to be praying with me and helping me to discern what that will be and what I can move into. But yeah, very thankful for the computers. If you weren't here this morning, please. We're very grateful for all you did to help us to get those, and pray that we'll be able to use them well now.
Thank you. Anything else you want to say?
I think that's it.
Okay, good.
We're done, Sharon.
Very good. I don't know about you, but I absolutely love coming to Missions at 6 because for me, it's real life. You hear the stories and how God has worked through the lives of these guys, and it's real life, and it's fantastic. So thank you so much for sharing with us tonight, both what you have been doing and what you're hoping to do, with all the added excitement for Stewart and Anna Claire, of course. And for Claire as well for the next few months and time. As part of Missions at 6, as you will know, we like to take time just to pray together. We're going to do that just now, and there'll be some prayer points which will come up behind on the screen. So just on the tables where you are, just feel free to pray, and then I'll close. But just before I do that, I just want to sort of I suppose just clarify a couple of things. I get to do this because I'm sort of outside and speaking into it. Neither of these, either Stewart or Anna Claire or Claire, are paid for what they do. They fully rely on fundraising, on people supporting them on a monthly basis, and that's an important part of it because they can't do it without that. You've got all the information on your tables as to how to get behind that. If that's something that's on your mind or on your heart tonight, don't leave without at least putting your name down so they can contact you, or take information that you can contact them. But please do follow up on it. The support groups, as Claire has mentioned, they're a vital part of what we do here in Glenabbey and how we support our missionary family. If you're not involved in one and would like to get involved in one, speak to me or William or someone else in the missions team. We'd be happy to direct you in a direction that will be suitable for you, that will work for you. And of course, on each of these guys' websites and so on, you'll be able to get prayer points, prayer updates, that in your own private time you can be praying for them and supporting them on a day-to-day basis, week-to-week basis, which is just so important. I'm delighted to see everyone here tonight. It really has done my heart good tonight. So thank you so much for taking the time to come along. And as I say, we're going to take some time now. We're going to pray. There's 2 slides. There's one for Stewart and Anna Claire and one for Claire. And just round the tables where you're at, feel free to pray. And then I will close in a moment or two. Thank you.